If I told you what happened on that cold November evening in Birmingham, you probably wouldn't believe me. On the corner of Corporation Street, a heavy-set woman was trying to play her old guitar, while the crowd that had gathered around her wasn't there to listen, but to mock her. But nobody knew yet that this seemingly ordinary moment would be talked about in Birmingham for years to come, because Ozzy Osbourne was about to walk down that street, and the intervention he would make in just a few minutes would make that cold evening unforgettable for everyone. Margaret Thompson was 47 years old, weighed around 320 pounds, and was trying to play Black on her old Gibson guitar, that melancholic Pearl Jam song. She had been making music on this street for 20 years, but had never encountered such a cruel crowd before. Her voice was powerful, her finger techniques impressive, but none of that mattered to the crowd gathered around her. "Look at her! She's completely out of breath," whispered a young man to his friend, pulling out his phone and starting to record Margaret to share on TikTok. A small hat sat beside Margaret with only a few pounds in it. As the crowd grew, the phone recordings multiplied. "Stop playing guitar and go to the gym instead," someone shouted, and everyone burst into laughter at this joke. At the back of the crowd, a blonde young girl started a live stream on Instagram. "Guys, unbelievable scene here," she said, smiling at the camera. "Looks like an obese woman in Birmingham thinks she's a rock star." Comments started flowing in, most of them merciless. "Cringe! Someone stop her! This is painful to watch." An elderly couple was watching the situation and shaking their heads. "Poor thing," the woman said to her husband. "She shouldn't put herself through this." A group of university students had positioned themselves at the front, mimicking Margaret, making exaggerated movements as if playing guitar. People from surrounding pubs and cafes had come out to watch the spectacle. Some were laughing while others felt uncomfortable, but no one intervened. This was modern Birmingham's ruthless social media culture. At that moment, a man in a black leather jacket with black hair was walking slowly down the street. Ozzy Osbourne had gone out for a nostalgic evening walk after the Birmingham leg of his latest tour. Despite being 70 years old, he still had that familiar energy. But he was calmer now, more thoughtful. The fatigue from his battle with Parkinson's disease was visible on his face. When he heard the guitar sounds, he looked up and noticed the crowd. As he got closer, he understood how cruel the situation was. This scene reminded him of his own difficult times, the reactions he received when he took the stage with his weight at the 1985 Live Aid concert, the media's ruthless comments, how alone he had felt. He had been judged the same way back then and criticized for his appearance. "Mate, move along. Nothing to see here," said someone in the crowd to Ozzy, not recognizing him. The man was wearing an expensive suit and looked like he worked in finance. "This woman is making a fool of herself. Someone should call the council," he added loudly. Ozzy shot him a sharp look, but didn't speak yet, quietly approaching Margaret. Looking closely, he saw the determination in the woman's eyes, but also noticed the accumulated pain. Margaret continued playing despite the mocking voices around her, as if music was the last branch she could hold on to. This scene broke Ozzy's heart because he saw himself there. But the truly shocking part hadn't even begun yet. "That's a beautiful song from Pearl Jam," said Ozzy loudly, drawing the crowd's attention. His voice was authoritative, that familiar Birmingham accent still strong. "But here's the real question. How many of you can play this cleanly and emotionally?" The crowd slowly turned and began to notice Ozzy. A few people recognized him. Whispers started. "Wait, is that Ozzy Osbourne? No way, what's he doing here?" The young girl streaming live on TikTok excitedly turned her camera toward Ozzy. "Oh my God, guys, Ozzy Osbourne is here. This is insane." Comments started flowing frantically. "Is this real?" The finance guy stepped back a bit, beginning to grasp who Ozzy was. Margaret had stopped playing in shock. Ozzy moved toward Margaret and said with that familiar grin, "Continue, please, love." These Muppets wouldn't know real music if it hit them in the face. Margaret suppressed her excitement and continued playing. This time Ozzy began to accompany her, singing in a low but powerful voice. "I know someday you'll have a beautiful life. I know you'll be a star." The crowd that had been mocking 2 minutes earlier was now listening in silence. The moment when Ozzy's voice met Margaret's guitar was magical. The street seemed to transform into a private concert hall. When the song ended, Ozzy applauded and said with a genuine smile, "Bloody brilliant performance. I'm Ozzy, love, and you are?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Margaret Thompson, Mr. Osbourne." I can't believe you're really here." With warmth in his voice, Ozzy said, "Why wouldn't I be? You're making beautiful music, and that's all that matters to me." As the crowd grew, some still weren't taking Margaret seriously. The finance guy stepped forward, seeming to have composed himself. "Ozzy, with all due respect, this lady isn't exactly a professional musician. Street performer at best." That condescending tone was still in his voice. Ozzy's expression changed, that familiar look of authority appearing. "Listen here, sunshine," he said in a harsh but controlled voice. "This lady has been standing here for over an hour, making real music, pouring her heart out, while you lot have been nothing but cruel." His tone was definitive and indisputable. "When was the last time you performed anything? When did you last put yourself out there, vulnerable, doing what you love?" That old fire was in Ozzy's eyes. "This woman does it every day, rain or shine. What do you do? Count other people's money?" Margaret felt safer beside Ozzy, but no one knew yet that what Ozzy was about to do on this street would change not only Margaret's life, but everyone present's perspective on life. Ozzy pulled out his old leather wallet from his pocket and put several 20-pound notes in the hat. "For the music, love. Real artists deserve support," he said, turning to Margaret. This action created a domino effect. The young girl streaming on TikTok was looking at the comments. "Chat is going crazy. They're saying we should support her too." People slowly began putting money in. The atmosphere was beginning to change. Ruthless social media culture was giving way to genuine human connection. Ozzy turned to Margaret. "What else can you play, love? Maybe we can do something together. I'm always up for a good jam session." "You know," said Ozzy, turning to the crowd, his voice now more personal and intimate, "I've been where this lady is. Maybe not on the streets, but I know what it's like to be judged for how you look." The crowd listened attentively, still filming with phones, but now with respect. "Back in '85, I walked on stage at Live Aid carrying more weight than I should have. The press tore me apart. 'Fat Ozzy,' they called me. 'Has-been,' they said." His voice grew stronger, the pain and experience within him speaking. "But you know what? Music doesn't care about your size. Music cares about your soul. And this woman," he pointed to Margaret, "has more soul in her little finger than most people have in their entire bodies." Several people in the crowd hung their heads in shame. Margaret was drawing strength from Ozzy's words, now having more confidence in her voice. "Mr. Osbourne, you really mean that? I'm just a street musician, nothing special." Ozzy almost shouted, "Nothing special? Love, you've got more talent in your voice than half the people on the radio today, and more courage than anyone else on this street." The young girl streaming on TikTok had switched to a completely different tone. "Guys, I think we've been really mean. This lady is actually amazing." Comments were starting to change. "She's actually good. Ozzy is right. We should be supporting artists like her." This was the quickly changing nature of modern social media. Viral hate could quickly turn into viral support. Margaret was noticing this, and perhaps for the first time in her life, she truly felt seen and valued. At that moment, a familiar voice rose from the back of the crowd. "She's just faking it. No way she can really play that good." This was coming from the young and arrogant owner of one of the local music shops. "Probably just strumming random chords, pretending to know what she's doing." Margaret's face flushed red as she hung her head in shame. Despite playing on this street for years, she still faced such accusations. But Ozzy immediately stepped forward, real anger now blazing in his eyes. "Right then," he said with that familiar, devilish grin. "Let's settle this properly." He turned to Margaret. "Love, fancy doing a bit of Paranoid? My song. So no chance of faking the guitar work there, innit?" Margaret smiled, now confident in herself. Her hands weren't shaking as she began to touch the guitar strings. That legendary Black Sabbath riff echoed through the air while Ozzy began singing with his powerful voice. "Finished with my woman 'cause she couldn't help me with my mind." This performance was mesmerizing. Two musicians from different generations and different worlds were creating magic on Birmingham's cold street. Margaret's guitar played with perfect technique, hitting every note flawlessly, while Ozzy's legendary voice merged with her guitar. Even the music shop owner started applauding, ashamed of his earlier accusation. When the song ended, spontaneous applause erupted. Ozzy shouted in his unmistakable voice, "There's your answer! This woman is the real deal. Pure guitar mastery." The young girl streaming on TikTok spoke excitedly. "This is going viral, guys!" We just witnessed music history. As the evening progressed, money was now pouring into the hat around Margaret. Not just British pounds, but euros and dollars too, as tourists had joined in. An elderly man approached. "Madam, I've been walking this street for 30 years. Haven't heard music this beautiful in ages," he said sincerely, pulling out £50 from his pocket and putting it in the hat. Tears of joy streamed from Margaret's eyes. Ozzy watched this scene while thinking about his own career. "You know, Margaret," he said slowly, "tonight you reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. It's not about the fame or the money. It's about moments like this." The finance guy approached Margaret with shame. "Ma'am, I owe you a massive apology," he said, his voice broken. "I was horrible. And your music, it's genuinely beautiful." Margaret looked at him with understanding. "We all make mistakes, love. What matters is learning from them." The man pulled out £100 from his wallet and put it in the hat, then quickly walked away. This showed the rapidly changing nature of modern society. In the social media age, people could judge quickly, but also apologize quickly. As Ozzy was leaving, he handed Margaret a business card. "Tomorrow evening, I'm having a little session at my home studio. Fancy joining? We could record a proper duet." Margaret took the card with trembling hands. "Are you serious? But I'm nobody." "Nobody." Ozzy's voice was firm and authoritative. "You're somebody who just reminded one of the world's most famous musicians what music really means. You're somebody who stood here tonight and showed more courage than most people show in a lifetime." He wrote his phone number on the card. "Plus," he added with that familiar grin, "Sharon's going to love meeting you. She's got a soft spot for people who don't take crap from anyone." Margaret's heart was racing. "Ozzy, you're like an angel sent from heaven." Ozzy started laughing, letting out that old high-pitched cackle. "Love, people have called me many things in my life, but angel definitely isn't one of them. I'm just a musician who recognizes another musician." As the crowd dispersed, many people approached Margaret to apologize. The university student said shamefully, "We're so sorry, we were being idiots." The next day, Margaret's phone wouldn't stop ringing. BBC, ITV, local radio stations, even international media outlets wanted interviews. The Guardian ran, "The street musician who moved Ozzy Osbourne." The Sun, "Ozzy's new best friend." That evening's studio session at Ozzy's house became the turning point of Margaret's life. Sharon was there too, and warmly welcomed Margaret. "Margaret, Ozzy can't stop talking about you. Says you reminded him why he fell in love with music." Margaret smiled humbly. "He's been so kind. I still can't believe any of this is real." That day they recorded 3 tracks together, an acoustic version of Paranoid, an original song Margaret had written, and a duet version of Pearl Jam's Black. When Margaret's voice and guitar combined with Ozzy's experience and production knowledge, something mesmerizing emerged. When the recordings finished, Ozzy turned to Margaret. "These recordings need to be heard. What do you say to a proper album?" Margaret couldn't believe it. "An album? With you?" Ozzy smiled. A few months later, Margaret's first album, Street Dreams, was released. On the cover was the photo taken that night of her and Ozzy playing together. The album attracted attention not only in the UK but worldwide. It received millions of plays on Spotify. Margaret's story was one of hope, talent being recognized regardless of appearance, the triumph of empathy and understanding in the social media age. Rolling Stone magazine put her on the cover. The voice that silenced the haters. She began appearing on television shows and was invited to concerts. But she never changed, always remaining the same humble, genuine Margaret. And in every interview, She mentioned Ozzy. He didn't just defend me that night. He reminded me who I was. Ozzy didn't hesitate to praise her in interviews either. Margaret taught me that real music comes from the heart, not the charts. Corporation Street now held a different meaning for Margaret. She played there every week, now performing in front of thousands of fans. That street corner had been officially named Margaret's Corner by Birmingham City Council. Margaret's story got approved for a Netflix documentary. The night music fought back. She was nominated for a Grammy in the Best New Artist category. But most importantly, she had confidence in herself. "I'm not the same person I was that night," she said in an interview. "Ozzy showed me that I was never the problem. The problem was people who couldn't see past appearances." And Birmingham's streets now felt like home to her, because music had truly set her free. Does this story remind you of something? Maybe you too have been judged by others, excluded because of your appearance or your differences. But remember that true value is always hidden within us. Like Ozzy and Margaret's performance that night, sometimes we just need someone to remind us of our real worth. Because like music, the human soul is also universal language, and this language, despite the ruthlessness of the social media age, is still too big and powerful to fit into any prejudice.